the webinar today is Winning the War for Talent, Leveraging Business Value to Attract and Keep the People You Want. I had an interesting meeting yesterday with a company, and we were talking about the A, B, and C players, and there was a lot of focus of the conversation was around the B and C players, but the important point I made is you've got to make sure those A players, you've got to keep them for the long term. It's all very well having them in that A box, but you've got to keep them around for many, many years. And what are the ways you can keep them there? So Byron will be touching that today. Next slide, Arvin. So as you're probably beginning to notice, we are beginning to transition across to the new branding. There was some confusion around Radix, Bruce Wilson company. So we are now being known as Wilson 360. These are all the services that we provide. So just look for more messaging around that over the next 4 to 6 weeks. But we've got some great people on our team. We've got a new graphic designer. This is thank you for Cassandra for coming up with this nice graphic design. But yeah, these are all the services that we provide. And if anybody wants to chat to me more about any of these, then feel free to reach out directly. And here we have Byron. I was introduced to Byron through another coach in Nebraska. I went to one of his webinars, and it was just fascinating just to hear Byron talking intelligently about something a lot of our peer group members and clients try to figure out, and how do we keep that talent within a company. So Byron founded the McFarland Group in 2005, got 20 years of financial services experience, and just dealing with business owners, nationwide, specializes in simplifying and complexities, and collaborating with advisors and delivering unique solutions that empower clients to make confident decisions. And he's got this great white paper on a bankable exit and bankable buyer concepts. So I know Byron's a big fly fisherman. His video, in fact, I think promoted that, and obviously he enjoys motorcycle riding as well. So Byron, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Robert. Thank you for that kind introduction and the opportunity to address your, do you call them your members or your associates?
Clients, members. We have some prospects as well. So
gotcha.
Yeah,
Welcome,
thank you,
welcome everybody.
So we'll let you jump into it.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. There's no PowerPoint. I know that you all are probably dying for a PowerPoint, and unfortunately, I just don't know how to use it. So I'm much more comfortable writing on a whiteboard, and that way I can express myself a little bit more creatively and point and draw. So I'm hoping that doesn't disappoint too many of you, and I'll do my best to make my concepts make sense to you. I've broken this presentation up into about 7 or 8 different sections, and I believe there'll be a video of it at the end that'll be available.
Correct. The video should be out probably in about a week's time.
And if you're okay with it, I'll go through and chapterize what I say, so that if you want to have the video have by chapter, so if anybody's looking for anything specific in the video, they can go right to it without having to wade through all the other concepts. So what I'm going to start off with is the kind of the title of the slide, which is Winning the War for Talent. And in that war, what I'm observing as an advisor, that your talent is being attacked from 3 different fronts. Those fronts are made up of forces that are somewhat emerging in our economy and our society. And the first of those fronts is self-employment, in that there's a massive move to becoming your own boss. The Small Business Administration keeps track of how many licenses or applications there are for businesses each year. And in 2021, there were 5.5 million new applications for businesses, which was up over 50% of the previous 10-year average. So we've got massive amount of self-employment interest. Second is that the baby boomers are retiring at a rate of 130,000 business owners a year. And they're selling their companies to people that are looking to become self-employed. And the third, which is really interesting, was Deloitte did a study of several thousand employees of a cross-section of large public and small private companies of people that responded. And over 42% of the respondents said they had a side business of employees. So there's just a massive groundswell of interest in becoming self-employed. Then over here on this flank, we have expectations. Now, perhaps in this particular industry, this may not be as relevant, but I'm going to share it anyway. Any business that is competing with public companies know that over 70% of public companies, large and small, offer some equity to their key employees, to their management team. So they're getting stock options, restricted stock, or something like that. So there's a lot of equity being made available to people that would be in senior positions. And that is setting the expectation that I would basically be eligible to become an owner of a company. And so if you're recruiting people that are in a public environment, then chances are they would be looking for some form of equity. And so those expectations and the self-employment, and then the third one is free market. And that with the availability of or access to people through LinkedIn and other social media, recruiting firms are able to go into LinkedIn, create an algorithm, identify all the positions that need a certain, hit a certain language set, and then they can ping them to see if they're interested in a job. So all these people are available to be talked to. So any employee that you have that is on LinkedIn and has a high profile and is active, there's a possibility that they're being contacted routinely by recruiters. So there's a war for our talent, and the fronts that I see that are being put up for self-employment is that I have 401k, I have health insurance, I have PTO, I've got, maybe you're giving the guys a truck or something of that nature, but benefits is a pretty much a core response that people are having to this self-employment wave. And in the free market, what I'm hearing is, but we've got a great culture, and that culture is going to keep our people there, and that I can count on them to be loyal because of the fact we went through a culture creation process, and maybe we're using the words on our trucks or putting them on our logo or something of that nature, and we're trying to practice it. But by and large, we're responding to free agency with, hey, we got a great culture. And then the third front, the defense that I hear is, well, we pay a bonus, and that bonus is a reward for, performance. But I commonly find that there's two problems with the bonus. The first is that it's paid in cash at the end of a business cycle, which means that when you pay it, there's no stickiness. So if they stay to receive the bonus, mission accomplished, they stayed. But right after the bonus is paid, they can become free agents again and negotiate for something else. The second problem that I see with the current bonus structure, or many bonuses, is that the person who received it had no way of identifying what it was expected of them. So they don't know what it was they did to get it. So maybe they got transparency into the P&L and they understand we made money. And perhaps if they're using some form of tool like Traction or Scale Map or some other form of coaching business planning service, there's some understanding of what it was they did to receive the bonus. But in my practice, I see a lot of uncertainty. Is I don't know what I did to get the bonus. I just know that I get it. But we do know that a bonus does not allow for or does not retain people other than through the actual payment of the bonus itself. So what I'm proposing is that you marry your business value with your talent by creating a portal by which your talent can share in some of your business value. And that we create a plan that allows those senior people to participate in the business value that you're creating through this arrangement. And as a result of that, we put another line of defense, like a moat around a castle, and that we create an arrangement where your key employees are participating in the business value. And when they get the call from the recruiter, and the recruiter says, hey, you got an opportunity for another 5 or 10 grand a year, they're looking at this moat that you built for them, that now they would have to leap across and and they would have to ask the recruiter the question, well, is there equity involved? Because right now, equity is the currency of the leadership. And if the answer is no, well, then you have a much more sticky talent pool. So what we do then is we tie that business value to your talent through a couple of ways. We have 2 types of equity. We got full value and growth in value. And what I mean by that, in full value, they're sharing in from like the origins of the company when you were just a little speck, whatever that value was, 0, to whatever the value of the company is today. They would get a piece of that overall business value. In growth and value, what they would get is they would get a piece of whatever it is that happens from here out. So let's say your business grows, then they would share in this piece right here, not the overall. So in the growth and value, they just get a piece of the appreciation that's happening in the company going forward. And there's 2 types of these plans. There's phantom stock and there's restricted stock in full value. And in growth and value, you've got stock options and you got stock appreciation rights. Well, phantom stock and restricted stock, they both participate in the overall value of the company. The difference between the 2 is that phantom stock is an employment agreement. So it's formalized through an employment agreement. All of the benefits that come from a phantom stock plan are paid out in a W-2, whereas a restricted stock is an actual capital asset where they get a piece of the actual ownership of the company, and anything they receive in the way of value from that, like distributions or profits, would come out of K1. So it's the difference between K1 and W-2. The stock options and the stock appreciation right and the growth in value, the stock option gives the option holder the contractual right to turn that option into actual outright restricted stock. So they get to choose when they exercise it, and then they become a shareholder with you. Whereas the stock appreciation right holder, all they get is the economic value of the spread that they get to participate in. So let me give you an example of those 2 in action. Let's say over here, we've got a business that's valued at a multiple of cash flow. And we're going to say a multiple of 5 of cash flow. So let's say that it's first year, we start off, we got $1 million of EBITDA times a multiple of 5. That makes that business, for our purposes of discussion, $5 million. So if we created a plan and we sliced off, let's just say we sliced off 10% of the company to share with the senior leadership team. Now, I know you're thinking, well, I don't want to give up 10%. I understand that. but let's just say you just sliced off 10% to set aside for management conceptually, then basically if they owned a piece of that 10%, there would be roughly $500,000 in that overall slice of that pie. If we just have a growth in value and we issued 10% of this from here to here, the first year, $5 million, there would be no value there because we issued it at $5 million in value. And then the next year, if we're doing really well, we might say we make $1.5 million, which would be a tremendous growth rate. Since this is just Excel money, we don't have to really worry about it. So let's just say a business is worth $7.5 million. Now the phantom stock pool has got 750,000. And so the stock appreciation, this growth pool would have the spread between 5 and 7, which is $2.5 million. 10% of 2.5 million is 250 is in that account. And then if the next year there was $2 million in earnings and the business is worth $10 million, which would be this right here, then there'd be $1 million in the full value, and then the spread between the 10 and the 5 is 5 million times 10% is 500 grand. So this is a representation of what an account of a pool of equity could be available for the management team that you could set aside for the management. And as you can see, by sharing the full value, there's a lot more reward there for the management than there is for the stock appreciation rights. And so if you just think about it in terms of the overall how it looks conceptually, this right here is for these guys. And this right here is for these guys. Total value versus just the spread in value. So one of the ways I've conceptualized it is, this is a slice of the pie. Here's the pie by giving up the equity of the overall company. But if you only give up the crust for the key employees, then it's less, there's less commitment there. So how do you know what type of plan to use? We practice this thing called the relationship paradigm when we're helping clients decide what type of plan to use. And that relationship is, for example, when two people decide that they like each other, they usually start out by dating, and then over a series of dates, they get to know each other. If there's enough affection and there's enough commonality and everything's going according to plan, then maybe they get engaged. And then after they get engaged, they set a date. And if they follow through on that date, then they get married. We see that as being transferable for a closely held business in the relationship between the management team and the business owner. And that we start off here with dating, and then we migrate to engage. And then if everything is going well, then we get married. Now, the vertical axis represents the commitment that exists between both parties, and the horizontal axis represents the expectations the business owner can put upon the participant in their relationship. So the further I go this way, I increase the level of expectations. So the highest level of expectation out here would be, if we needed money, then you as a key employee, you would put money in the company if we needed money, capital call. And the only asset that essentially represents true marriage is the restricted stock. So the only asset that you can compel somebody to actually make a capital call would be restricted stock or partner units. Everything else back here, there's never going to be a request for never going to be a call for capital. Everything else back here is going to be one-sided risk. And so on the engaged side, you got your phantom stock, you got your stock appreciation rights, and then you have your options that have not yet been exercised into restricted stock or partnership units. But on this stack right here, our expectations are we're not going to ask them, we can't ask them to contribute capital if the business goes down. But we do have a higher level of commitment than we have over here with the bonus. And the bonus represents the lowest commitment, and only expectation existed was back here the previous 12 months or whatever period that they had to do something to earn the bonus. But the expectation then would be that perhaps you just need to stick around to receive the bonus. So if you have a bonus plan, my recommendation would be that you stage the bonus into 2 payments. This would be, let's say, year, and then you got 6 months later or 1 year later, so that you've got some stickiness in the bonus pool. So that's a way to create a bonus plan that actually creates some resonance with the participant and perhaps will keep them around through any form of adversity. So typically what we are doing then is from this stack over here, this full value, as you can see, is far more generous arrangement than the growth in value. Typically, we would use phantom stock to reward a key employee that has been with us for a while, that we wanted to keep because they're performing. But in the past, perhaps we had not either followed through on a promise that we made to them that we were going to do something for them, or we were not paying them perhaps according to the fair market, and we want to make up for it. So typically we'll use phantom stock here for these people to give them a piece of the action of the past. We don't recommend going right away to marriage. I mean, there are arranged marriages. There are people that do arrange them, and they are successful, but they tend to be, older cultures. So I don't find that an arranged marriage or someone coming to you, joining your company, and right away you're willing to marry them, unless you have love at first sight. And I don't know how often that actually works really well. So my recommendation is, if you've got somebody that you want to reward for the past, you use phantom stock. If you want to reward somebody for the future and the growth of the company that might be recently joining you, then you can use stock appreciation rights. And so that would be ways that you can go about making decisions as to which type of equity plan would make the most sense for you and your company.
Hey, Byron, I've got a quick question for you.
Yep.
Mike Rory is asking, how do you feel about deferred comp plans?
Deferred compensation?
I believe so.
DEFERED? It's a deferred bonus,
yes.
Or?
Mike, I might let you see if I can get you to speak. So bear with me a second. Mike, you're able to jump on and chat if you would like.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Byron. One of the other vehicles that we've been looking into that I don't know much about, that I wanted to get your 2 cents on, is deferred comp. So you've got, your base salary, you've got a profit sharing plan, you've got benefits, but you want to say for these long-term people, hey, we're going to put a deferred comp plan in and hypothetically, roll 50 to 100 grand a year into a deferred comp plan, which I'm assuming you could have vesting, again, to make it stickier, which I like your term. But it seems like also a simple vehicle. I also believe, I'm not making a statement, that it is tax deductible. So I'm guessing either the money that goes in gets taxed to the individual and the net goes into the deferred if the business is going to be able to expense it. But can you share any comments you'd have relative to deferred comp versus or in addition to the phantom stock that you're covering?
Yes, thanks for the question, Michael. So as I understand it, you're being it's being proposed to you and your company to implement a deferred compensation plan for a certain group of key employees.
Correct.
And that the plan would be sponsored by the company using company money, not the key employee deferring a bonus or salary.
Correct. It'd be in addition to what you're already paying them. So you're paying
Okay.
fair market value,
Yep.
all in, base, bonus, bennies, 401. But again, long-term and or people that you believe are in the window of potentially retiring. So somebody in their 50s, and or even your younger tier, but in particular, in this case, to juice people's retirement, to again retain them through their retirement because they're key performers.
Yes. Okay. I get it. So your objective is to retain a certain group of a cohort of leadership to their retirement and use this as an instrument to do that. So there's like a substantial value that would be available to them if they met your criteria.
Correct.
Which is your vesting schedule.
Yeah, the vesting and then overall profitability. There'd be variation like there is for the business. If the business is making 12% versus 18%,
yep.
Everybody's going to get more at 18 than 12, and anywhere in between is going to be some other figure, which is how our profit sharing works.
Right. So you would be looking to use performance as a tool that would then result in either award amount or vesting or both.
Both.
Yes. Okay. Got it. I'm with you 100%, Michael.
Okay.
Okay. So that plan will work great for the guys in the 50s.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good to know, because we really are looking at a couple vehicles. A guy 40 years old is, totally different story. He's got 20 plus years to go.
Yeah, that's just a long, long putt, but it's possible. But there's a lot of, it's a fairly common plan that's presented by insurance agents. Then they use life insurance to fund it, which then is designed to offset the liability for future benefits. But we don't see them working anymore, other than for your more mature in age group, guys that can see that they're going to need more money than probably the simple IRA or the 401k or that probably would be the two places they would have their money.
Yep.
So I like it. So then your magic would be in working on this over here, which is award, vesting, and payout. This is like I call this a triangle of resonance, and that we're really trying to create. Well, if all you want is stickiness, then you just need to keep funding it. But if you're really trying to drive results, then you need to be clear on how the results are tied to the award or tied to an accelerated vesting schedule, which is what coincidentally I was going to talk about next. But to answer your question, I would be a fan of a deferred bonus plan for your more mature parties. I'm also a fan of deferred bonus plans that have a payout that would be in the next 5 or 7 years, so that there's a sense of value that 40 or 30-year-old could see I can use this money to improve the quality of my life.
Mhm.
And so Michael, we do a lot of interviewing of participants, and what we're trying to find out is what is it that participant wants, in their life as a result of their relationship with you and your company, and then try to match what they want with what you're willing to give them if they do certain or they create certain outcomes. And one of those outcomes is obviously stay, and then the other one would be deliver some result, either keep us the same, help us grow, help us move into a new space, new market, whatever it is, but you want them to do something perhaps that would be performance oriented.
Yep.
So what I'm not a fan of is a age 65 must be present to win plan. I think that's too onerous. I don't think many people, and you'll see this in a moment, they're not going to see the value in that. So if you can be patient, I'll go through this next concept, which will help address that statement that I just made.
Cool. And I agree with you. The over 50 guy is easy because he also realizes there's going to be an end and he wants an end to his employment, but it's his ability to retire or sustain his lifestyle once he retires from his primary career or working altogether. And then with the younger group, I could see where every 5 years you could have a full vest to, again, accommodate some thing in their life that they want, be it a bigger home, more equity in their future, blah, 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 and then restart it. Go again.
Here, think about it this way, Michael. It's not an all or nothing. So we don't build and then dump. We would build, draw, build up, draw kind of thing. So
Okay.
you want to create some value that is always subject to forfeiture that would represent this moat for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get to that, which is part of this discussion right here.
All right,
So
I'll turn it back over to you and then come back again after you, like you're saying, get us to this next spot in the discussion.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the question. It's a good question, and I'm sure it's probably relevant to others that are hearing that. So anyway, so this next concept is this MF, which is the motivational force. And motivational forces was essentially brought to my attention by reading about expectancy theory, which was an early 60s industrial psychologist by the name of Victor Vroom, who came up with this observation that if you want people to behave in a certain way, then here's the formula to get them to start moving in the direction that you would like them to move. But these three variables need to be addressed first. And the first of the three variables is belief. And that belief is made up of myself. So if you ask me, Byron, can you do something? And I evaluate myself whether or not I can do it. Like, Byron, can you cast a fly line 40 feet? Yes, I can. I can cast a fly line 40 feet, not a problem. So I know that I could do it. Then that then represents an individual belief. Then I've got basically a team. So if I'm asking them, do you believe that all members of our team can cast a fly line 40 feet? And let's say I'm the only one out of 5 that's ever cast a fly rod. I'd say no. The other 4 or 5 people have never cast a fly rod. They have no idea. They'd never get the line off the rod. So the belief would be low. So the whole key here is to get to know whether or not the people can actually deliver something that we're asking them to do. And then the third would be if we were asking them, can the company do it? So if we got individual awards, team awards, or company awards, know that the first question that everybody's asking themselves is, do I believe we can do that? And usually belief is based in things that have happened in the past. So have we done things like this in the past? Second is, are the resources that are necessary for it to be done available, whether that be investment in something or the right people or the right equipment, but by and large is a question of whether or not the resources are going to be there. And so to the extent that if it's all on me, then that's a pretty easy one to assess. It's just that when you get to the team and the company, that the belief really needs to be that we have done this in the past. Then the second is trust. And that trust is in the scorecard, meaning that you're asking me to do something. I gave the example of, you want me to be able to prove, you want me to be able just to cast routinely 40 feet of fly line. Well, the scorecard is 40 foot of fly line. I trust the scorecard because I can see when I got 40 feet out or not. I know whether I've been able to cast that 40 feet. But if I can't see what it is that you want me to do or how what you want me to do is being measured, then I have to trust that you know it, that you're measuring it right. And that puts into play the second thing, which is basically the scorekeeper. Can I trust that the scorekeeper is objective? Do I trust that the scorekeeper is actually keeping score? And if both of those things line up, then trust can be high. And then the third do I feel that the value that's being offered to me, if I do the thing, if I believe I can do the thing, and I believe that, and I have trust that you're going to keep accurate score, do I then feel that the award that you're going to give me is meaningful enough, then I'm going to be pretty motivated to act. And the two forces here are life stage and family. So as we were talking about the guys in their 50s, you know, their life stages, they're pretty focused on retirement. So anything you give them that's focused on that might be good. Family-wise, we don't know their family situation. Maybe they got a second family. Maybe their needs are they got a special needs kid. I don't know, but these are all things that we would want to know to determine whether or not if we want to behave in a different way, then this is how they're going about evaluating your offer, whether they're conscious of it or not. And so if I can get a 10 here, a 10 here, and a 10 here, then my score is 1,000. That's the maximum score. Then I know that's pretty much like a crack addict, you know, waiting basically by the corner to try to, you know, pawn something so they can get their next hookup. They believe they really need that whole thing. So this is the thing we want to try and tap into when we're designing the plan for the award and the vesting. Those are the two psychographics that we put into play for that. Which really brings us to this next section right here, which is this here is vesting. This is award. And then this is a payout. And where we tie this result into is the vesting and the reward. And we can make both the vesting and the award performance-based if the party believes that they can do the work, if they have trust that the score is fair, the scorekeeper is fair, and the amount of the award is relevant value to them based on their life stage, then a performance vesting or award program will have high value for the business. So on the award side, if all you're looking to do is ensure that they stay, then we know that it takes about 15% of their base salary set aside for them over a period of years, and that will create enough value that they'd be inclined to stay. But that has no performance at all unless you make it the 15% tied to performance. We know also that if there's roughly 60% of salary that is subject to, has not been vested, that they won't leave. So if insurance is our primary motivation, then 15% of salary for a handful of years, that gets them up to 60 or 70% of salary between the 4th and the 6th year. If they can see that they're going to get that at some point in the future, they won't leave unless they're sick. You fire them, something really bad happens in their life. But we've had plans where people have stayed because they've had roughly 60 to 70% of their salary subject to forfeiture all the time. But they have been paid out some of the benefit in the recent past, so they can see that the benefit is available to them. And then the payout is number one, we pay everybody out at change of control, and we do that based on this. What were the terms? So if you got 80% of your purchase price of your business value paid to you in cash, then we would pay them out 80% in cash, and 20% would be subject to risk. The second on the payout is that I said before, is we have some form of in-service payout that's the 5th or the 7th year, and we do it in such a way that it always leaves something subject to forfeiture. So we're always trying to build out something that they would have to, if they left, they would leave behind, which goes back to this right here. So we're never paying 100% out. We're keeping something in to keep the 60% of the salary available in the account, so that they did leave, they did think about leaving, they would have to think, okay, I'm leaving behind $60,000 or $150,000, $90,000 in forfeited value that I know I'm going to get if I stick around, because we pay out every 3 or 5 or 7 years. Does that make sense? I guess I'm asking Robert.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me, but I don't count.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've just put a note in the chat. Again, if you have questions, then either put them in the chat or raise your hand. We've got about 10-ish minutes left. So,
okay. So, and then the last on the payout is death or disability. So if the participant should die or become disabled, that their family would get paid out. Now, the reason I devoted so much space to this is that when we're designing plans, this is all the work. All the thinking is based upon, okay, how do I use the payout to capture maximum amount of enthusiasm for the business? How do I time the in-service payout so that it's relevant to these people over here that are in my talent pool? How do I tie the award to performance that would be growing our business value by driving up earnings? And then how much of that do I want to share with the leadership team? And then when am I willing to pay that out? So I'm doing a kind of a cycle of decisions on there. On the vesting schedule, which is a great opportunity to get leverage on your performance, is that you ask your people to deliver a result, and that result then basically vests their award. So instead of it being a time-based award, which is, that's somewhat socialistic, you got a merit-based award, which is if I deliver, let's say I deliver 150% of target, then my vesting for that year for the award that you were going to give me would be 150% of the vesting schedule. So if the vesting schedule was 4 years at 25% a year, then I would get vested 37.5% that year because I was 150% of the target for the vesting. So you can really create some energy around vesting. We work with companies that are using either scale map or traction or some version of business planning, and we tie either the vesting or the award to your business goals. And usually those business goals, the outcome you're seeking is to increase your business value, which is to grow your earnings. And so if it's a quantitative goal, like increasing the number of homes that you guys are servicing, then you can tie the vesting schedule to that or the award to that. So anything that you can measure, you can then use to tie into your award or your vesting schedule. Then this WIIFY, which is basically what's in it for you. This is you. And these are all the roles you're playing. 1 role, 2 role, 3 role. And then this is time going this way. And the goal is that you would be playing fewer roles as the business owner over time. That you would be offboarding responsibility to your talent pool, and you would use a scorecard to monitor their performance in assuming those roles. And then as they're picking up those roles, you're able to step down here. Then either A, an award, or B, a vest would occur. And then ultimately you're down here just playing a very enjoyable role that you might do for free. And as a result of that, you have tied your management team into the company and you have increased your T value. And your T value is probably the most important value you have in your business, which is T is for transferability. And that if you have low T value, then you have low cash at closing. So if you want to sell your business and you have low T value, know that the terms are going to be high in deferred payments and low in cash at closing. If this over here is reliance, and ideally the reliance on you would be down here, because if it's up here, then you have low cash at closing, but if it's down here, then you have high cash at closing. And the way you do that is you delegate or you offboard responsibility before you sell, so that when they're going through due diligence, that the due diligence doesn't reveal you are very responsible for sales or operations or both. And the value is going to leak out in a transfer, so the value goes down. So what we do is we use equity compensation intentionally to get you to be able to skip down, use a scorecard that makes you feel safe, and then know that when you're ready for due diligence, so we've got low reliance, which would mean high cash at closing. And we do that through either creating awards that are compelling to the participant as you're able to step down, or we accelerate vesting, or we do both. And then we can, based on their relationship with you, they would either be grow value people or they would be full value people. So.
Cool.
Byron, I've got a couple of questions here for you. We've got about 5 minutes left. What's the most common equity-based incentives you see in the marketplace?
So the two most common that we see once a business owner is aware is phantom and stock appreciation rights. The ones that we see that where there's regret is when they didn't know phantom or stock appreciation rights existed, and they went right to restricted stock. So they didn't know they could use phantom or stock appreciation rights to tie the management team to the organization, and they they offered them outright ownership first. So
Cool.
we see phantom and stock appreciation rights. We rarely see stock options. I've only seen 2 stock option plans in over 100 and some plans that we've put in place.
Cool. Thank you, Byron. The next question is, what's some of the best practices around plan payout?
Plan payout?
Payout, yes.
Yeah, okay. So what we think works the best is that we say this is year 1, and we go out in the future 3 to 7 years, and we say, here's your stack of forfeitable value, and we start allowing you to take some of that off. So we allow you to take a piece of that value off the table so that you can improve the quality of your life. So we know from our experience that retirement-based incentive plans will only work for the people that are very near retirement. So an in-service payout tends to be the most popular way to create resonance in the plan design, which is what you're really looking for in the plan, is to create high level of resonance.
Cool. Thank you, Byron. Any other questions? Anybody want to put their hand up or put a question in the chat? Give it a minute. If we don't get anything, we'll wrap up here. Is this funded through ordinary income?
Okay, so that's right. You did mention that. A deferred compensation plan, Michael, is you do not get a tax deduction on it until you actually pay the benefit out to the participant. So the whatever it is that you're setting aside for the participants is after-tax cash. And then once they are eligible to receive their payout, then that's when you would get your deduction. So many of the companies we work with will use accounting entries to recognize the liability, but they may not set the cash aside because they're using it to finance growth, and their growth rate is, let's say, giving them a 20+% rate of return on cash, and setting the money aside into a sinking fund is only going to give you 3 or 4. So they would choose to reinvest in the company and then have an unfunded liability that they would pay out of future earnings that would be deductible. Answer the question? Nope.
When are the plans you've described taxed?
So they would be taxed to the participant when they receive them. They would be tax deductible to the company when they're paid. So if you set aside, like you made, his example was, if we set aside 50 grand a year into an account for our key employees in a deferred comp, that 50 grand is after-tax reserve money. Just look at that as being part of your overall working capital. It's not going away. It's just accounting-wise, just sitting over there to help you be prepared to pay it out in the future. And you can use a sinking fund, meaning just go out and buy an investment, go out and buy a life insurance policy or both, and then use that actual asset to help offset the payment of that liability in the future. but most of the companies we work with they're not informally funding it. They're using, especially if they're growing, because the rate of return on their money in motion is much greater than return on money in the sitting on the sideline.
Cool. Byron, I think we've reached our time here. Arvin, I'm going to get you to put up Byron's contact information if people want to reach out to either me or Byron directly. Byron, really do appreciate your time today. Very detailed explanation there. I love your drawings. Glad you're doing it rather than me. So Byron, there's Byron's contact information. So let you take a snapshot of that. If you want to reach out to Byron, you're on Central Time, I believe, Byron.
That's correct.
So again, really appreciate your time today, Byron. Hopefully a few people reach out to you just to chat more. Thank you everyone for attending today. Really do appreciate it. Hopefully you're getting some good value from these webinars, and I'll let you get back to your day. Thanks everyone.